friends, how are you all doing? Well, we're back again. This is the third Facebook Live. The first one was about Gorton, the second one was about Ashton, and tonight is all about Oldham. It takes us about 2 weeks to research the place, to find out all the juicy stuff that I like, the weird and wonderful and the ghostly stories. And then we rehearse it and then we bring it to you. So what you're about to watch tonight in the next minute or so is 2 weeks' work. And therefore, if you can, please donate to the virtual tip jar. As I said before, we've had no money coming in from any performances since the 13th of March. And it's only these and your generosity from these Facebook Lives that are keeping us ticking over. I really, really appreciate it. Really. So if you can donate tonight, please do. If you can't afford it, then I totally understand. We're getting, well, 1,200 people have watched the Gorton one so far, but obviously only a small percentage have actually donated. So if you can, that'd be wonderful. But for now, over to Flecky Bennett one more time.
It's Flecky, it's Friday, it's Flecky Bennett Friday, it's Flecky, it's Friday, it's Flecky'S Fright Night.
Press the wrong one, sorry. Off to a good start.
Are we live?
We are.
Hello, my friends. How are you? Oh, looking at the wrong camera there. So, hope you're all well. Got a bit much dry ice because last time I forgot to use it all together. Come over to this camera. Let me have a word with you.
Let's go.
Hello. Hope you're well. Oh, yes, I can see you. You put some pants on this week. Like, it's because it's VE Day, isn't it? I said VE, not VD. I'm looking at you. Back to this one, please. How are you all? So, not sure how many of you is going to be on, because I didn't know it was VE Day and a bank holiday and all that malarkey when I scheduled this event. So, some of you might be on, some of you might not be on, but you'll be watching it later when you're pissed, or tomorrow when you've got an hangover. But whenever time you watch it, please enjoy it, and please give to the virtual tip jar. You never heard me saying that, it's subliminal. Yes. So, are we okay there, Emma? Emma's behind the thing. Let's have a look at Emma.
Hang on.
Let's have a quick look at her. There she is. There she is. No, she's coming now. There's Bugger Lugs. There's Bugger Lugs. If anything happens, if anything goes wrong, it's all down to her.
No, it's not. No, it's
Yeah, that's right. So can I just double check, Emma? Is the sound okay?
The sound seems fine to me.
Good.
What about everyone out there in...
Yes, because I want to double check the sound's all right, because last week, well, it was a bit all over the shop, but it's because of Facebook and too much traffic. So, if something goes wrong tonight, which it might do, because when we rehearsed it yesterday, the broadcast stopped because too much traffic on Facebook, because we're all staying in, aren't we? And therefore, if it happens tonight, stay with it. There should be just a pause, it'll come back on again. And if we have some big trouble, then we're going to put it on YouTube later and let everybody watch it that way. But let's proceed like everything is perfect. So, my friends, I'm Flecky Bennett, Ghost Walker extraordinaire. Not my words, visit England, visit Manchester, just saying. And tonight it's all about Oldham. How do you Oldham? With your hands? Oh, yes. It's all about Oldham, isn't it? And it's everything I tell you is based on true documented accounts. It's for adults only because of sex, violence, bad language and nudity. And that's you. So, send me back. I'm back. So, yes, it's not for young ears. I mean, I don't swear and stuff, really, but, you know, it's adultish content. So, yes, great to see you. Let's have a quick drink. Have you all got a drink, everybody? Yes? Raise your glasses, everybody. So, my friends, let's begin. Now, I know some of you, quite a lot of you, are from Oldham, or you've lived there before, you live there now, or you once worked there, somebody said the other day. I think it was Jean who said that, but I'm not quite sure, but I know quite a few of you, you know Oldham quite well. And let's start off with the name Oldham. I was hoping, praying to God, that it would be something to do with ham that had gone off. You know, that it was something to do with old butchers and dodgy meat and stuff. But it doesn't refer to that. It means old home. That's all. The home of the old home. That's all it means, Oldham. So it's a bit of a disappointment, that, so we're looking forward to some rotten ham. However, I found some truly horrible accounts of horrible food connected with Oldham. Okay, so I'm going to go through. I'm going to put my green light on because it's horrible. So if Bugaloods could send me over here.
I'll send you over there.
Oh, hello. You all right? Nice to see you. So I'm going to keep projecting my voice so that it's perfect for you. So, my friends, there's a market and it's called Tommyfield Market. Not yet, Emma, not yet. It's called Tommyfield Market because it used to be a field that belonged to Tommy. It's as easy as that. I should be teaching at school. Tommyfield Market. This guy called Tommy was a pig farmer, so there's a link to ham. It was a pig farmer that rented a field. And on that site, years later, is Tommyfield Market. It's the, you can look at it now, it's the largest and oldest and highest market of its type in the country. Highest. I never thought that would be the case, being high, but Oldham is high. Send me back over here. Yes. So it's obviously quite high up. In the sky is Oldham. Well, the market, when you think about it, you do go up a few hills, don't you, to get to it. So yeah, it's been there for quite a few years, as you can see from the picture you just looked at. And let me just tell you what they used to serve on it. So, what they used to serve. They would basically sell anything and everything on Tommyfield Market. Now, I like a bit of cheese, I don't know about you. And I quite like a bit of Stilton. Where you gone?
Showing the other picture of the market.
Oh, no. No, are you back? I kind of like cheese. We've looked at the pictures of the market. Well, you should have. I'm going to sack her. Can't get the staff. Yes. Now then, I like a bit of Stilton cheese, but apparently the Stilton cheese on Tommyfield Market had whiskers growing out of it. What do you think about that then? The apples were so hard you couldn't bite them. Ooh. The bacon used to crawl about by itself. Ooh. Yes. And the lamb was that old it had turned into sheep by the time you'd bought it. And the drink they used to sell was champagne, which was nothing but a sham. Also, there was jeweller shops. Jewellers that sold gold rings that weren't gold. Sounds like the old Gorton market, actually. It was a bit dodgy. And it sounds fantastic. People used to have a really entertaining time. I don't fancy them foods, but, you know, they used to have a good time on Tommyfield Market. There used to be a quack doctor. You probably heard that term. These doctors, which weren't, they had no kind of formal education or any certificates, but they used to travel around like a gypsy in a caravan and travel around market to market. Let's have a look at one. It's a really lovely picture, this is. It's a lovely picture of what they look like. That's a quack doctor. As you can see, there's a caravan and all them lovely little lotions, and used to sell all sorts of weird and wonderful things. So, my friends, I like a bit of piss and poo, as you know. So it's a piss and poo alert for this week. Let's have a look at the piss and poo alert so you're not mistaken and you're not having your tea. You can put it down, put your egg fried rice down. If you're eating a hot dog, unlucky. So yes, let me tell you, come back to me on this one, Emma. So yeah, piss and poo alert. Or pee and poo. Piss and poo, yeah. It's all adults here, aren't we? Piss and shit, let's have it right. This quack doctor used to specialise in all sorts of weird and wonderful things. Stuff that bald men can rub on top of their heads to bring back their hair. Now, you won't want to, because them bottles, inside them that they used to rub on their hair was goat's piss, oh yes, and pigeon poo. Have a look at it. Just imagine rubbing that on your noggin. Oh yes, truly horrific. Goat, piss and pigeon poo. That's right, innit? Put it right way around, then, Emma?
Yep.
Yes. And that's what they used to rub on their heads, and that's what the quack doctor used to sell. He used to sell, wait for this, cigarettes to cure asthma, showing here. and love potions. Oh yes. As you look into my eyes. Hang on, where have you gone? Love potions. Oh yes. Look into my eyes. Oh yes. You're going to fall in love with Flecky tonight. Ooh. Now then, talking about falling in love with Flecky, there used to be also on that market a fortune teller, the teller of fortunes, and I believe I've got a little bit of that in my DNA. I reckon I can read your minds out there. Especially you ladies. Let's have a change of light. Now, you ladies out there, no cheating. I'm going to ask you a question in a second. I'm going to ask you a question and you must say it immediately. Don't even think about it. If you think about it, it might not work. I can't connect with you. I can't connect if you think about it. You must answer immediately. As soon as I say it, shout it out. So the people that are sat with you, wherever you're watching this, or if you're watching the repeat, when you shout it out, what you say will appear on the screen straight away. But you must say it immediately. Okay? So let me channel Flecky Bennett, the fortune teller. Let's have a look at Flecky, the fortune teller. The man who knows what?
Naffle.
What does it say on my poster?
Flecky the man who knows note.
What does it really say?
Flecky the man who knows.
Thank you. So, come back to me now. So, my friends, I've got a question to ask you. This is for the ladies out there. Just the ladies. If you were a playing card, which playing card would you be? Now, show them, Emma. Yeah? Oh, yeah. Yeah? Oh, yes, indeed, indeed. Just saying. So that's what used to happen on the market. They used to have fortune tellers, quack doctors, and horrible, horrible food. Now, talking about horrible foods, I don't know if this the people from Oldham, as they like to call themselves, have ever tried. You've got a special dish there which only people in Oldham would eat. And for a good reason. Send me back over to you. I need the horrible green light again. Listen. Some of you might have tried this. I can't recommend anybody would, but, you know, let me just tell you. It was called Brewis. Right? Strange name. Sounds like it could be something to do with alcohol, doesn't it? With brew in the title. Forget about that. It was basically blood porridge. Ooh, have a look at it now. Blood porridge. Only in Oldham did they serve this stuff. Blood porridge. Come back to me. So basically it was like the rest of us, just have normal porridge with porridge oats and milk or whatever, and salt and sugar and blueberries and fruit. It was porridge oats, onion, and what made it blood? Mixed with black pudding. Oh, and what they used to do, depending on how thick they made it, they either eat it as a porridge or make it thin and drink it all day long. Blood porridge, I give you, my friends. Now let's talk about something that's nice food-wise. And we've had it for our tea tonight. I mean, I don't usually eat before I do these things, so I'm a little bit nervous before I begin. I know you're looking at me thinking, surely not. But you see, I care what people think. So I always get a little bit nervous. But the main reason is it gives you windy pops. So I might be burping my way through this performance. But we've had fish and chips. Now, I don't know how many of you have fish and chips. We haven't been out. We've stood self-isolating us. We don't want to catch out. And but we made it ourselves. We got one, not boiling the bag, but cook in the oven. Very nice it was. But Oldham had the most chip shops per person in the country. I think it was one chip shop for every 400 people. And the reason for that was that the first fish and chip shop in the world was in Oldham. And it was opened in 1860. It was called Lee's Fish and Chip Shop. You might be looking at a picture now. Have you just looked at the blue plaque?
No, not yet.
Yeah, have a look at the blue plaque. And that shows you there that... and they believe that they invented fast food in that place. And this is a picture of Lee's Fish and Chip Shop. It's now demolished and it stands on the site of where Tommy Field Market was, the Field of Tommy. So, who would have thought that it was the first place to have fish and chips in the world? The first fish and chip shop. Anyway, I think it's time to raise our glasses, isn't it? Yes, let's raise our glasses. Oh yeah, I just meant to tell you as well. I know, you know, the times we're talking about VE Day quite a lot today and stuff. And one thing that they never rationed in the war, in the First World War or the Second World War, was fish and chips, because they decided it wasn't worth the trouble, because it would affect people's morale so much. So it's the one thing they never ever ration. So cheers, everybody. Raise your glasses. And yes, fish and chips. Now let's talk about alcohol. Oh yes, we all like a drink, don't we? Especially you. You really like a drink, don't you? Yes, you. Led on your back, guzzling your wine. I can see you. Now, we've all been in Yates's wine lodge, haven't we? Throughout the country, they have them in most places, one in Manchester. I worked at the Yates's one summer when I was at stage school. It was a hell on earth, horrible job. Hated every moment of it. Anyway, I digress. The first Yates's wine lodge in the world was in Oldham, because it was a couple of brothers from Oldham which opened it. And you should be looking at a picture of it anytime now. I'm going over to this camera. Yes, so that's Yates's original wine lodge. But let's talk about some of my favourite subjects, shall we? Pubs and ghosts. Now, these two stories, first of all, are a couple of haunted pubs that are in Oldham. And there's a pub that used to be there called the Star Inn. Now, it used to be a butcher's shop before that, the Jolly Butcher. A butcher's shop used to be there. And then they opened up as a pub from the butcher shop, called it the Jolly Butcher. Then it became the Star Inn. And the landlord, he was a manic depressive, and one day he went down into the cellar and he slit his throat from ear to ear. Right across, all the way across. Blood splurting out. Oh, it's quite good, but not like. Blood splurting out everywhere. Dead as a dodo. And years in and years after that, people were terrified about going down into the cellar, because they would see his ghost standing in the corner, looking at him. Oh, it's quite good, look, with blood coming out of his throat. Spooky! Let's go over here. But when you come over, come on over. Come on. That's it. Hello. Now, opposite the Star Inn is a place called, well, it was Butterfly's nightclub. And it's been all sorts of things. I think the roller derby girls were based there originally, weren't you? Or are still there. I know some of the roller derby girls might be watching tonight. And anyway, it was a nightclub for a while. But before that, it was a cinema. And what we're looking at, the Star Inn.
No, the butterflies.
Oh yeah, the Butterfly, yes. Yes, the Butterflies. And that's what it looked like. The Butterflies nightclub. And so, yes, before that, it was a cinema. And there was a guy that worked there called John Lloyd. And by all accounts, he was a very unlucky man. It said that he kept falling down open trapdoors and all sorts. It sounds a bit like Frank Spencer or Norman Wisdom. But anyway, it went totally wrong for him one day when a beam fell from the cinema ceiling, landed on him and crushed him to death.
A baked bean?
No, not a baked bean, a Sean bean. No, a bean. You know, a beam, not a bean.
A wooden bean.
You can't get the staff, I tell you. So a wooden beam fell from the roof, landed on him, squished him, killed him. Okay? That was in the late 1800s. Move forward to the 1990s, and it was a very popular nightclub called Butterflies. Now, it happened, I think it was the 27th of October. They just locked up for the night, the manager. It's probably about 3 in the morning, and they went to have a brew in some cafe. Must be one of them cafes that's open all night, obviously. And they got a call at 4:30 in the morning from the police saying that all the alarms had gone off. Somebody must have broken in. So they all rushed back. The police rushed back with them. And they checked and no doors were open, no windows were smashed. So they said, oh, it's just a false alarm. They didn't bother, turn the alarm system off. It was only the next day when they started analysing the CCTV cameras that they saw an image. Clear as anything, there was a man walking down the passageway and he turns and walks to a locked door. The door was still locked the next day, so he didn't have the key. He walked through the door and into the room. And it was at 4:23 a.m, I believe. And that was the exact time that the alarm went off, and the police recorded the alarm going off. It was the time that they captured this man walking down the passageway. So, my friends, you asked me, I asked you, where's this video gone? Well, so they were quite startled by this video and they sent it off to the BBC in Manchester to be analysed. They thought maybe that the tape had got some other image underneath it of a man walking along, that it was bleeding through onto the next film, onto the next frame, should I say. And when they actually analysed it, said, no, this is real. There's nothing being faked on here. It's real. And there's a reporter in the room when they were analysing it, and he took some photographs of the screen. Now, it's a good job he did, because that when they sent it back to Oldham, back to Butterflies, the actual film, it was lost in the post, and it's never been found since. So they've only got this one frame now that guy took in the office at the BBC before it was lost. So this is it. Let's have a look at it. Now, it's quite hard to see, but you can quite clearly see there is something in the middle of that empty passageway. That was an empty passageway. There should be nobody in it at all. And you can see there's a white object. And it seems to be a man, and they've analysed it pretty closely. Maybe the video is a little bit in more detail. And he seems to have a white shirt of some description which finishes very short sleeves. Very short sleeves. And all these ghost hunters got involved and said it's got to be the ghost of John Lloyd. It's got to be, because he's the only person we know of that died in this building when it was a cinema. And then these parapsychologists said, well, that's fine, but he seems to have a white t-shirt on, a white shirt with short sleeves. They didn't have them kind of shirts back when John Lloyd died in the cinema. And then apparently John Lloyd's grandson, and he might be watching tonight, who knows? If you are, hello to you. His grandson saw the photograph, said, that looks like my grandfather, John Lloyd. And he had a skin condition on his arms, and he would roll his shirt sleeve right up to the top, like nobody else did. That wasn't the fashion of the day, so he used to roll his sleeves right up. Nobody knew that detail, so when you put the two and two together, it sounds like John Lloyd is haunting Butterflies nightclub. So it's a nice little... Shall we have a look at the picture again? Show it again, Emma. So yeah, just look at it. It does seem to have like short sleeves on or something like that. But I'd love to see the actual video. But it's lost for all eternity. So my friends, yes. So that's two haunted pubs. But the most fascinating pub in Oldham, without a doubt, is a pub that was called, and I also have to look at the titles, it's a really long title. It's called it's no longer there, Help the Poor Struggler. Let's have a look at the outside of the pub when it existed. And then it had a very, very famous landlord. Let's zoom in and have a look above the door. Now, I don't know how clear you're going to be able to see that, but you may be able to read it. It says above the door, Albert Pierpoint. And you probably know that name, especially if you're into like facts about hangings and, executions. It's not a very jolly subject, but it's a fascinating subject, very much linked to Manchester, because Pierpoint, I think he was the last of the Queen's executioners. And he was also the person that hung the last woman to be hung in this country. So yeah, he had that as a job in the daytime. So as I said on the Ashton one, executions seem to take place at 8 o'clock in the morning. So he'd do his executions, sometimes up to 17 executions per day. And then he'd open up the pub at night. And he was, not at night, in the afternoon, wasn't it? It used to be 12 o'clock till 3 p.m. Then he used to shut and open again at night time. So he'd be there from 12 till 3 to open up. And just imagine it. He's been executing people in the morning, hanging people in the morning, and he's serving behind the bar. Have we had a look at him yet?
Yeah. Got him on there.
Yeah, well, that's what he, as you can see, he looked a very friendly man, and by all accounts, he was incredibly friendly. Everybody called him Mr. Smiley, and he always had a big cigar in his mouth, and he used to enjoy working behind the bar, and nobody used to talk to him about what his other job was, out of respect, even though he used to mix with some of the greatest criminals, like all them famous criminals from, I can't think of that, Crippen and all them people. He was the one that executed them. So they knew that. He also executed some of the war criminals, the German war criminals. So he was a very famous man. But the regulars in his pub They never spoke to him about it. They respected that he had two different lives. The only bit of a connection to the pub is apparently above the bar, he had this sign saying no hanging around at the bar, which I think is a bit Sixth Sense, but that's what he used to do. Now, every night when he was about to close, they used to have a sing-song around the old piano, which was quite popular back then. And his best friend from the pub, his most loved regular, was a man called Tish. And Tish would play the piano, and every night they would finish on "Oh Danny boy, the pipes are calling." And I mean, that's a very touching song, isn't it? Every night they'd finish on that, they'd shake hands, give themselves a hug, and Tish had on his way home. One night, Tish, on his way out, decided to go and visit his on-off girlfriend who lived in Ashton-under-Lyne. All these stories are connected, aren't they, every week? So he lived in Ashton. The relationship had been a bit like that for many years. Anyway, they had a massive argument. He strangled his girlfriend to death, did Tish. And he admitted to the crime. He said, yeah, I'm sorry, I did it. Taken to court in Manchester. You'll be hung by the neck until you are dead, dead, dead. And then he was taken to Strangeways. And this is when our friend Albert Pierpoint, two worlds collided. He had to go into the cell at 8 in the morning to see his friend Tish. And Albert Pierpoint said, just to make Tish feel a bit, well, sorry to say I can make somebody feel a bit better, but he said, I greeted him like I greeted him every night from behind the bar. I went, hello Tish, how are you? And he said it seemed to calm Tish down. And then, as quickly as anything, he took Tish from that cell to the execution shed and did it very quickly as possible. Now, I said last time in Ashton there's a James Berry who was an executioner. I'm going to talk about him again in a minute, but he was 3 times before Pierpoint. And he got it down, the speed he could do it from the condemned cell to death, 3 minutes. Pierpoint tried to make it as quick as possible for his clients, that he called them, because he wasn't a barbaric man. He wanted to make the pain over and quickly, and he wanted to make sure it was done correctly. Now, there was a film came out a few years ago called Pierpoint, starring again, and it's linked to the first week with Gorton, Timothy Spall as Pierpoint. And here's an expert, I'll say that again, hang on, let me put my teeth in. An excerpt from that film, and it's quite chilling. Watch this.
Seven and a half seconds. That's a record.
I don't mind telling you, Pierpoint, I don't think there's a better man in the country.
Thank you, sir.
7.5 seconds. It's quite terrific, really, isn't it? I've watched that clip quite a few times now, and it makes you feel really strange. 7.5 seconds was the record, and he made it as quick as possible. He made sure that the rope was the right length for the person's height and body weight. He said it was important that it jerked at the back of the neck, which snapped the neck, rather than it mustn't pull the head off, which it could do if it was too long, and it mustn't choke the person slowly to death, which could take up to 30 minutes. It had to break the neck, and he was really, really adamant about that. Now, Pierpoint, carried on running pubs. He actually retired as the executioner because there was a day when he was supposed to do some jobs and they were cancelled and he didn't get paid, so he threw a wobbler and he actually said, well, you can stuff your job up your arse. And he carried on running the pubs. Then he run one near Preston for a while. Then he retired to Southport. And he lived a right old age. He was 87 when he died. Let's have a look at him. This is him just before he died at the age of 87. And he said that hanging, it never solved anything. He was really against it by the end of his life. But one thing he said that hanging, his best friend Tish, haunted him to his very last breath. At night in bed he could still hear them singing together. Oh Danny boy, the pipes are calling. Over glen and down mountainside, the summer's gone and all... I don't know any more of the words. I don't know any more of the words. But you get the idea. That haunted him to his very last day. Oh Danny boy, oh Danny boy, oh Danny boy. So, as I said in the Ashton one, there was an executioner called James Berry who was operating at that time, when the Ashton one was. And it was 3 times before Pierpoint. And talking about worlds colliding, it happened for James Berry once. And yes, there's a woman, and she was called Elizabeth Berry. And you might be looking at a picture of her now. Mm-hmm. Yes, and this is Elizabeth Berry. And she is Oldham's only serial killer. She's the only serial killer from Oldham. Very similar story to the Ashton one, that she poisoned her child, her 11-year-old child, for the insurance money using arsenic. And they found out about it, and she was given the death sentence after she was hung. They decided to dig up all the family. She'd murdered her mother, her husband, and her other child, all in the same way over many years, for the insurance money. So she was the first woman to be hung at Walton Prison in Liverpool, and James Berry was her executioner. Have you had a look at James Berry?
Yep.
We've seen James Berry?
Yep.
Very distinguished man. And a fair man as well. He really cared about it. As I said in the Ashton one, he really cared that nobody suffered. But he wasn't as good as Pierpoint. But he recalls that he went into the cell. Never met the woman before. He just got a list of names that he had to go and do the job. And he went into the cell. Elizabeth Berry was there waiting for him. And it dawned on him that he'd had a bit of a date with her the year before. They'd been out for a bit of a kiss and a cuddle and a dance. And he remembered her because they shared the same surname. And he had to execute somebody he'd been out on a date with. I bet some of you lot on Tinder would like to do that, I know. Anyway, so that's the executioners. And that's what happened. Let's raise our glasses, everybody. Excuse me. Raise your glasses. Let's have a little drink, everybody. So I hope you're all keeping well. Let's have a bit of dry ice. Let's have a bit of dry ice. Oh, that's nice, isn't it? So, yes, Pierpoint... very famous man from Oldham, but there was quite a few famous people from Oldham, and still going on. Now, doing my research, I didn't know this, but I think you'll find this quite interesting. So, the first one is a young woman. Let's have a look at her. This is a woman called Olivia Cook, and she first of all got Hammer House. I'm a big Hammer House of Horrors fan, as you've probably seen if you've seen my t-shirt. By the way, I've been on Facebook quite a lot with it's a long sleeve t-shirt with Hammer written on, right? I have 4 exactly the same, okay? 4. What happened was it was 20 quid for one of them. I bought one, then Asda had a sale, £6 each, so I bought another 3. 3 for the price of one almost. So don't think I'm a scruffy dirty get. That is a fresh one every time, okay? But I'm a massive Hammer House of Horrors fan. I love them. And a few years ago they came back, and this was the first horror film I think they came back with. It was called The Quiet Ones. And Olivia, who's from Oldham, got the lead part in The Quiet Ones. And then Hollywood started to take notice. She went over there and she got straight into the series Bates Motel, which some of you probably will have watched. Mm-hmm. And she played the girl with the tube. She had the oxygen... what was her name? Emma. Like your... Yeah, oxygen tube in her up her nose. I don't know what happened, so I gave up before it finished the series. I lost the will to live. Anyway, and then after that, she probably at the same time actually she was filming that, she starred in a really successful horror film, Ouija. And so that is Olivia. And yes, so let's have a look at the other famous people. Let me just start now. So we've got more terrifying than any of those horror films. Schofield. Not talking about Jonathan Schofield. He's scary enough. This is... I thank you. I'm not bitter. Hello, Jonathan, if you're watching. Yes, Jonathan... What's his name? Philip Schofield. Philip Schofield's from Oldham. We've got Biggins. Christopher Biggins is from Oldham. We've got Cox. Brian Cox. He's from Oldham. But my very favourite. Now listen. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a comedian. And these are my bloody favourites. I'll give you a clue. Hang on a minute. Hang on. Wait for it, Emma. I'll give you a clue. Let's go on this camera. Rock on, Tommy, you little liar. Let's have a look at him. Let's have a look at him. Cannon and Ball. Oh, my God. I love Cannon and Ball. Love them with a passion. Saw them all the time. Summer seasons everywhere. Torquay, Blackpool. Love them to death. And they're still touring now and they're diversifying into other things, but I really did love them. And I wanted to be when I was a kid, you ask me mum, email her. I wanted to be a comedian. Then I wanted to be a magician. Wanted to be a singer. I wanted to do puppet shows. And when I was looking at the famous people from Oldham, there was one guy that stood out for me. Same name as the lead singer of the Specials and Fun Boy 3, I think. Terry Hall. But this Terry Hall was a ventriloquist. Let's have a look at him. And he was the first ventriloquist to make the first ventriloquist doll, which wasn't a human doll. So he had an animal called Lenny the Lion. This is way before Orville the Duck, you know. I wish I could fly. It was quite high, that, wasn't it? Right up to the sky, but I can't.
You can.
I can't. So way before Orville.
Where's me prize?
That's right. It was Lenny the Lion. So he comes from Oldham, and yes, ventriloquist. I love ventriloquist acts, and my favourite was this one. Some of you remember it. Ray Allen and Lord Charles. Keep on that picture a minute, because as you can see, his doll, it's like a lord. Well, it is. Ray Allen and Lord Charles. What am I talking about? The clue's in the title, isn't it? And with a little monocle. And the genius of the act was, you know, when ventriloquists can't say certain words like gottle gear and stuff like that, well, they used to pretend the doll was pissed, so it was slurring its words. It was a genius act. And again, saw them all over the place, Torquay, Blackpool, wherever they were. I loved them. So I wanted to be a ventriloquist, not the doll. I wanted to be the actual ventriloquist. And I actually had, and I wish I had it now, I don't know whatever, I must ask my mum, do we know where it is? I bet we don't. I had a Frankenstein ventriloquist doll. Look at it. I found one on the internet, what I used to have. I think that's off eBay or whatever. They're going for about £200. God, I wish I had mine. Frankenstein doll. And I wasn't very good at it. Although if you watch the Ashton one, the Facebook Live, that looked a bit like a ventriloquist act, because my lips weren't moving with my words half the time, as some of you pointed out to me. Still worth watching, mind you. So yeah, so I thought to myself, why was I fascinated by ventriloquists and ventriloquist acts? Well, it's because it's quite a sinister thing. I mean, let's have a look at ventriloquist dolls. They are sinister. I mean, look at it. Now, slow down, Emma, slow down. Now, what they used to believe in the old days, they used to believe it was like witchcraft, and that anybody who could speak, it was somebody speaking from inside your stomach, so somebody was possessed. Look at this doll here with the eye missing. Are we looking at that? Have a look at that one. Yeah. What? Oh, yes, quite amazing. And eye missing on one of them. Some really horrific. But yeah, they used to believe that all ventriloquists were evil, horrible people, that it was a demon speaking from inside their stomach, burping its evil words out of the ventriloquist's mouth, and then words came from hell. Oh, yes. Now, I don't know if you've got pipes. I showed you to get pipes last time. Let's go onto this camera. If Stuart and Helen are watching, I've got my pipe. Very strange thing. Look at that. So if you're ever confused about anything, get your pipe out and ponder it for a little while. Ponder it. Good pipage. Let's go back to this. So, yes, talking about hell, that's where they used to believe the words came from. They came from a demon inside the ventriloquist's stomach, and they came directly from hell. Oldham was compared to hell. Oh, yes, it was. Oldham was compared to hell. Go back to this one. Now, not because it's a horrible place or anything like that. And they used to believe that, well, no, the reason it's called that, I'll come back to the Oldham people in a minute, but yes, they used to say to people, you weren't allowed to say the word hell in the early 1900s. That was blasphemy. You couldn't say bugalows, you couldn't say piss poo or anything, you couldn't say it. So if they wanted to say to somebody, you'll go to hell, all over the northwest, they used to say, you'll go to Oldham. And everybody knew what Oldham was a substitute for hell. Ooh, Oldham, that's hot. You know, and that's what they use it. So that was one Oldham of a story. Are you having that? Of course you're having it. So, my friends, let me talk a little bit about the Oldham people, what they're called. They're called Oldham Ruffyheads, or Ruffyhead, or Ruffyheads. Let me just get it on there. Oldham Ruffyheads. It's R-U-F-F-Y heads. Ruffyheads. We're debating how you might pronounce it. Some people from Oldham will say Oldham Ruffyhead, maybe. Roughheads. And why they nicknamed that? Well, people used to say because they're quite blunt people, are the people from Oldham. They say it like it is. But it wasn't because of that at all. The main industry in Oldham was hatting, very much like it was in Stockport. And the workers, at the end of the day, when they got their wages, they were allowed to buy the reject hats. The hats that were wonky and scruffy and bits missing, they could buy them very cheaply. So all the workers in Oldham were wandering around with those wonky hats on their heads. And that's how they got the name, the Ruffyheads. Oh, there you go. So talking about hatting, it was the main industry there for a while. And it was brought there by one man. And the man was called Thomas Henshaw. Now, we should be looking at him. Let's have a look at Thomas now. I'll just have a quick drink while you're looking at that, ladies and gentlemen. Good looking chap, as you can see. I think that was taken quite young in his life. But he had quite a tragic life. His child died very young, I think 10 years of age. His wife died very young. And then he lived as a bachelor for quite a long time. Then he got married very late on in life. And just after he got married, maybe a youngster, he got married to. And he had a stroke and he ended up with paralysis of the face. And he couldn't cope with it. And he ended up taking himself and drowning himself inside the reservoir outside his hat works. Straight in, committed suicide. And they say from that point, that land has been haunted by Thomas Henshaw. When he died, in his will, he didn't leave any money to his new wife. She was really pissed off. She said something like, well, he wasn't in the right frame of mind. This is potty. He left it all for the hat works to be knocked down. And on that site, a school built. All the money went to build this school. And it's a beautiful school. And it's still there to this very day. It's called Blue Coat School. Let's have a look at it. And I know some people that are watching tonight work there as teachers. It's a really beautiful one. And it's still going strong to this very day. Blue Coat School. And there's loads of accounts of Thomas Henshaw haunting the school and the outsides of the school. In the 1920s, people that lived nearby the school were reporting that they would see a ghost of a man leaping up and down the walls late at night. Now in London, they had somebody called Spring-Heeled Jack. And in Oldham, they called him Oldham's Spring-Heeled Jack. And he was often seen floating up and down the walls late at night. They actually started locking themselves in their homes to avoid him. They were that terrified of Spring-Heeled Jack. But the main place that he haunts to this very day is a tunnel, because there's a tunnel that connects the school to Oldham Parish Church.
Oh.
I'm waiting for you.
Sorry,
I'm waiting for you, don't worry.
Put the
Don't worry.
on.
So, my friends, what did you just show then?
The tunnel.
Just wait for it. So, my friends, let's have a virtual ghost walk. We're going to walk underground from Blue Coat School right into the crypt of Oldham Parish Church. And let's hope we don't see the ghost of Thomas Henshaw as we go along. So let's have a look at the passageway, Emma. What we're looking at there, just tell me what we're looking at.
Okay, it's the first
Yeah,
passageway.
the passageway now, they've got them lit up now, but back in the day they were completely in dark. And the next picture will show you that it's candle lit and it's quite spooky, as you can see. That's a passageway that goes all the way through the crypt, all the way through to the old school, to Blue Coat School, haunted by the ghost of Thomas Henshaw. Now, above our heads, let's imagine we're down there in that crypt. Above our heads. Let's have a bit of dry ice for this, Emma. Hang on. I'll look it up. Above our heads, right above us, is Oldham Parish Church. Let's have a look at it. It's a beautiful, beautiful old church, built in 1830. And it's stunning, and it's quite a big church, and the crypt underneath is equal in size, if not bigger, to the church. Come back to me, Emma. So let's imagine we're down in that crypt. Now, I think the first picture we're going to show you is some of the coffins, isn't it? Just a picture of the coffins. Let's have a look at them. There's 84 vaults down there. Stay on that picture, Emma. There's 84 vaults down there. Some of them have still got the original coffins inside. And as you can see, they are lead coffins. So the bodies inside there sealed in, like welded in, and then they would cover it in leather or wood. They used the lead for if anybody died, because they weren't very good with diseases like the plague and stuff, like, you know, we're having a resurgence at the moment, but they wanted to seal all the germs in with the person when they died, because they didn't know what they could do if it escaped them germs. So that's why they sealed lead coffins. Apparently there's three entrances to the crypt. There's a spiral staircase inside the church that takes you down into it. There is a large entrance at one side of the church where they used to take the funeral procession down into it. And the old passageway that you looked at before, the tunnel, used to be a way into it, but that's now blocked up. Apparently they sometimes do tours down there, and I would love to do one. And if I get a chance, I might see if I can organise an event down there. I bet you'd like that, wouldn't you? And I tell you would like it. But let's have a little virtual look down there. There's one famous man down there with a very big coffin. Let's have a look at this little bit of film right now. So, my friends, this is down in the crypt under the old parish church in Oldham. And this is the Oldham Giant's coffin. As you can see it right there, it's absolutely huge compared to the smaller coffins you can see by the sides of it. So you can see how big this guy was. So that is the Oldham Giant. Got the wrong camera. I'm over here. Oh no, it's on me right. It's on me dizzy. So what do you think of that?
Sorry.
Look at the size. Look at the size of that coffin down there. Now, why was it such a big coffin? By the way, I borrowed that off Uber site, so thank you guys. And what are they called? Urbex page. So thank you guys. Now, yeah, that big coffin belongs to the Oldham Giant. Oh, I kid you not, the Oldham Giant. Let's have a look over here.
Oh, God.
I know. Keep you on your toes. Let's have some dry ice. Here we go. So yeah, the Oldham Giant. Let's get my pipe out. Yeah. What do you think, guys? Do you believe in giants? The Oldham Giant was a gentleman, and he wasn't that big actually. You'd think he was bigger than he actually was, but it was called Joseph Scholes, and he was 6 feet 7 inches tall. Which I know people that tall myself. Really, I do. He was 37 stone. So I suppose that's the secret. He was 6 feet 7 and 37 stone. And he used to be the governor of Oldham Workhouse. And he died suddenly in 1814. Now, as I say, the crypt is a lot older than the church above. It goes back hundreds of years more than that. So that's his coffin. When he died in 1814, he was so loved by the community of Oldham because he was a good, he looked after people in the poorhouse. He really fought for people's rights. He wanted nobody to go hungry, and he wanted to get people back on their feet. And when he died, thousands watched his funeral procession, and he is down in the crypt. It took 12 pallbearers to carry his coffin. So he was a big man, and he was called the Oldham Giant. Not quite sure what we're looking at now.
It's his coffin.
Yep, that's his coffin that we're looking at now. So yeah, look at the size of it. And it was also lead, because they didn't know what he died of properly. Now, talking about processions and stuff, even a few years ago, they did some street theatre in Oldham, and they built a life-size, well, I think it must have been bigger than life-size, puppet of the Oldham Giant. and they paraded it through the streets, and thousands of people came out, including his own family and his relatives came out. So, lovely man, the Oldham Giant, and that's his coffin down there inside the crypt, which I'd like to go and see one day for myself if we ever get out of lockdown. So, that is the puppet that you're probably looking at right now. So, my friends, just a stone's throw away. Let's have some dry ice because we're coming up to the spooky stuff. Hey, it's time for the red light, I think, isn't it? Yes, time for a different light. Light change. Oh, yes. Hello. So, yeah, just along from Oldham Parish Church is a fantastic theatre. Been there many times myself. I know people that are watching might have performed there. And
We went last year.
we went last year ourselves to see the Lancashire Hot Pots. I've been there quite a few times to watch different plays. And Oldham Coliseum dates back to 1887. And at first, it used to put circus acts on. It was like a circus. And then they started doing proper plays. Now, in 1947, there was a Shakespearean actor called Harold Norman. And he was starring in the title role of a Shakespeare play that you should never, ever say the title. It's a Scottish play that you should never... It's not Train Spotting. No, it's not Train Spotting. It's not Taggart. No, it's none of those things. Oh, sorry, I'm going to say it. It's called Macbeth. Now, there's a curse... I probably got it right now because you're not supposed to say it, especially actors are not supposed to say Macbeth because it's got a curse on it. I'll tell you more about that in a second. But anyway, in 1947, Harold Norman was playing the part of Macbeth. There was a big sword fight between Macbeth and Macduff, and it pierced through, Harold. It pierced through his costume and it stabbed him. Have we looked at Harold?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you might see there's a newspaper report there which shows that it was reported all over the country because what basically happened after he was taken from the theatre, he was taken to Oldham Hospital and it got infected, the wound, and he died a few days later. And his ghost haunts the Coliseum to this very day. Mainly on a Thursday, because Thursday is the day that he was stabbed on stage. And he's often heard whispering into other actors' ears the words that should never be spoken. He creeps up to people and he goes, Macbeth, Macbeth, Macbeth. And if he says that, the play's probably cursed. Now, our friends at Most Haunted, I don't know if Stuart's watching or any of the guys, but they did a really, really good episode inside Oldham Coliseum. You can watch it for free on YouTube, it's there to be watched. And our old friend Derek Okora, God bless his soul, he does a fantastic performance when he gets possessed by Harold Norman. And he goes through the exact stabbing routine on the stage. It is marvellous. But late at night, after they've all gone, after Derek's gone and it's got quiet, just Stuart and Carl go up into the top balcony. Now, me and Buggerlugs are up there watching Lancashire Hot Pots. And there was a very strange man sat next to us, and I only thought when I read this account, I wonder if we were sat next to the ghost. There was a man that looked really out of place, really smart clothing, but he just looked a bit odd, really.
Like he didn't belong.
He didn't belong. He really didn't belong there, and it wasn't his sort of thing, Lancashire Hot Pot. So very strange. But anyway, Carl and Stuart go up into that balcony at night, and they're sat there on their own with their infrared cameras, and you can hear one of the seats lowering and something sits down. And they've captured it perfectly. So let's have a look at that little scene right now. Have a look now and see what you think.
You see, the beauty of this is now there's no one else here now in the theatre. There's only me and you. All the rest of the crew are on the other side of the building now, so... What the hell was that? No, what was that? Car. What was that? That came from over there, that noise. What was that then? That sounded like a, what's it? I think a seat coming down. Well, there's a seat down over here.
The only way to check if this seat had just moved was to view the footage later on. We discovered that fortunately, Carl's camera had recorded this same area of seating a few minutes beforehand.
Interesting. What do you think out there? Do you think that's real? Well, I think it's interesting that they actually captured them seating just a few minutes before. So they say, but we've got to just trust them on that, haven't we? So it's a pipe moment. Interesting. Good pipage. So yeah, so that's what happened when they went up there. And let me tell you why Macbeth is a superstition. Because you'll know that there's 3 witches. There's 3 witches in Macbeth. Let's have a look at them now. And they're the 3 witches around the cauldron. Emma should be showing you the cauldron right now with the 3 witches. And yeah, when Shakespeare wrote the play, he actually used real witches' curse. And witches at the time told him, you can't use our actual curse. He said, well, I'm using it. They said, well, if you do use it, there is now a curse on the play Macbeth. Anybody says the name Macbeth, anybody performs in it, a tragedy will happen to you. So that's what happened. And there's another interesting fact as well. Did you know that Macbeth has the first knock-knock joke in it? Really does. So it's a fascinating theory that he used the actual witch's curse. And here's a little bit of a video of a woman doing it beautifully. Let's watch her right now. Over to her.
Double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble. Cool it with a baboon's blood, then the charm is firm and good. Oh, well done, I command your pains, and everyone shall share in their gains. And now about the cauldron sing, live elves and fairies in a ring, enchanting all the things you put in. By the pricking of my thumbs, something wicked this way comes.
Something wicked this way comes. Indeed, my friends. So that's about the end of it. But I've just added a little bit extra to this today. Because of V-Day, because obviously I didn't know about that when I was planning this 2 weeks ago. So to pay a little bit of a tribute to V-Day, there is a war monument right in front of the Oldham Parish Church. Let's have a look at it now. And it's a wonderful statue. It's men in the trenches with one man who's climbed out the trenches on top, getting the other men to charge over with him. That's from the First World War, obviously. I know today's all about the Second World War. But also, there's a glass, well, in the centre of the monument, and we can see a picture now, you'll see there's like a glass in the middle, like a little window. Well, there's a list of all the people that died in the Second World War from Oldham. So that's a tribute to those. And amazingly, it's a Grade 2 listed building now. That statue on the top, can we go back to the statue for 1 second on top? It used to face the Oldham Parish Church originally, and then they rotated it so it now faces the Town Hall. It's a Grade 2 listed building, and it used to have a door. We can have a look at that now. A door that used to be able to go inside. How wonderful. And you could read the names of the Second World War people. And the best thing about it, inside there's a prayer room where you can just have some quietness and pray to whatever God you pray to. So my friends, I hope you've enjoyed your little trip round Oldham, looking through the eyes of Flecky Bennett. It's been a pleasure performing to you again. And let's have a drink. Raise your glasses, everybody. Yes, I'm going to put the white light back on now. I've had enough of the red light, just like Roxanne. Roxanne! How are you all doing, my friends? Let's have a drink. Well, it's been fantastic being here again. I hope you've enjoyed it. Just let you know what's coming up before. We'll have a bit of a Q&A in a second, as usual. But let me tell you what's coming up this Friday coming. Now, some people have said to me and asked me, will I be doing these Facebook Lives about Stockport and things like that? Well, any of the ghost walks which I do, you know, above, actually out there on the streets, like Stockport, Manchester, I'm not going to do these Facebook Lives because obviously that might affect ticket sales in the future. Because people think, well, there's no point in going. We've seen it now. So obviously, I don't want to do that. But I made an exception. I do one in London, as you probably know. I do the Highgate Ghost and Vampire Walk. I only do it for private bookings now because I used to live in London, but I don't anymore. So I just travel there and travel back again. So I thought, well, let's do a virtual ghost walk. So you're going to virtually walk along the streets. I'm going to be using like the Google Maps, you know, the street view, guide you around, tell you the stories, the pictures. It's going to be exactly like it was when I did the performance in London. It's going to be divided into 3 parts. The first parts are about the ghosts that haunt the village. The second part is about it's a celebrity house tour. I'm going to take you using Street View to the houses of all the rich and famous. So it's really interesting. And then the third part is all about the Highgate vampire, the most documented case of a vampire ever in this country. So it's going to be a virtual ghost walk. Unlike this, it's going to be on YouTube, and it's going to be, you have to buy a ticket. It's going to be very cheap. It's going to be £5 per ticket, plus booking fee, which is about £1, something like that. And then once you buy your ticket, you'll get an email from Eventbrite, and they'll give you the special link. So only people that buy the ticket get a link to watch it on YouTube. I thought it's the best way of doing it because obviously, again, I'm risking my London one because people will say, well, I've seen it online, I don't need to come on the actual one now. But I just fancy doing something a little bit different. And I might do the same idea with the Paris one because, again, I'm going to be taking business away from my normal performances when I start again. So these ones that we're doing now, these are something completely different. But I'm going to carry on doing these as well. Flecky'S Friday Fright Nights are going to carry on even when we're back out there. The next one, I'll give you a bit of a clue where it's going to be. It's going to be in a town in the middle. I'll let you work that out. So, my friends, let's have a Q&A. Let's get me pipe. Hello, Stuart. How are you doing, everybody? Are you all doing all right? That's what I want to know. It's been a strange old time. We seem to be getting through it. Me and Emma have been really, really committed to the cause. We have not been out, and I swear to you on this, not been out of this area. No, I tell a lie. I've been out once because I had to go and get some shopping because we couldn't get a home delivery. But apart from that, we've not been out of this flat and our front garden for 9 weeks. So we've done our bit, and I know you lot are doing your bit as well. We've got to get rid of this disease, and we've got to try to get back to normal, or some kind of normal. I don't know how long this is going to be going on for. They're saying that theatres won't open again till next year, which could mean that I won't be opening again till next year because audiences can't be next door to each other. So, if you've enjoyed this, and I think you might have, then please virtually tip me. We're really relying on it. It's the only money coming in now, as I said before. But I'm not going to talk about that anymore. So, you didn't hear that subliminal. Have we got any Q&As? Let's have a few questions.
Will you do Preston, Lola Lenoir, and Cat?
Yes. Hello, Nicola. Hello, Lola. No. I'd like to, but the only problem is people come on my website because it's manchesterghostwalk.co.uk. That's the only problem, is that people come on because they want to know about things in Manchester. I might do one in Preston. I suppose I could do something like organise one and put it on a Preston page or something on Facebook, direct to the page. But it depends whether my loyal audience are in the Manchester area, and that's why they want to hear about the places where they are. But I'd love to, because Preston's got some great stuff, some great history. So you never know, Nicola Love. Nice to see you. Any more questions?
Yeah, Hazel. I'll get to Hazel's. Gemma Tucker, do you know how old the Oldham giant was when he died? Do we know that?
No, I don't think I do, but I don't think he was a very old man. I think he was only in his 50s, something like that, I seem to recall. No, he wasn't very old. But I'd have to contact me spirit guide Fanakapan, also known as Google, to find it out.
Hazel Gardner, if you were a ventriloquist,
yeah,
what would the name of your ventriloquist doll be?
Oh, Fanakapan. I love that name, Fanakapan. I love that, a Galloping Payaka. Great names. I think I'd like to use my ventriloquist doll as my psychic spirit guide. I think it's never been used, that. Imagine being a ventriloquist with a psychic with your guide, like Derek Accorder had. Sam, I could have like a Fanakapan, so I could ask it questions. You could ask me questions, because for it, I'll just pretend now. Oh yes, Hazel, you're going to come into some money shortly. Soon as the government start paying out their self-employment stuff, I'm thinking about 15th of May, you might come into some money. That's me doll saying that about. Oh, that's me psychic ability. Look at that. So you bit of luck. Am I right? You never know. Any more questions?
Yeah, just people asking for locations. We've got
What have we got?
Liverpool, Denton,
Denton's a possibility.
um,
Denton and Reddish, definitely, I reckon.
Hyde,
Yeah,
Staley Bridge.
Yes, Staley Vegas. Yeah, definitely. Hyde. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, all them little places. I also want to do some in the city centre that I don't cover on the normal ghost walks. I want to do Fallowfield, Withington. What are you laughing at?
Lola.
What's happened to Lola now? What's going on?
Says, please will you do ghostly possessions like Derek Acora?
Oh, well, you never know. You never know. But
Particularly Mary loves Dick.
oh, Mary does love Dick.
Oh my god.
Well, if
Just don't encourage him.
If
God,
you
I've
get-
got to live with him.
I mean, great respect to Derek, and I'm sad he's gone because whether you believe him or not, he was very entertaining, wasn't he? And I remember seeing him live at the. It was when he was in More Staunton, and More Staunton was massive, and he sold out 2 nights at the Palace Theatre, and it was amazing to watch. To be perfectly honest, the things it was all. There's this thing called Barnum statements that. Even if I said something, if I said something to camera now and said, all right, here's a little Barnum statement, put me on this camera. A Barnum statement is something like, when you go to a party, I bet you always stand sort of at the back of the room, don't you, watching other people, and although you're enjoying it, you always feel like you're different from other people. You don't feel like you're kind of like them, really. You always feel a bit different, and you feel like you stand out. Now, some people might think, oh, that's quite, yes, how did they know that? Well, that's a Barnum statement, and psychics often use Barnum statements that apply to everybody. Barnum was the, you've all seen The Greatest Showman, that's about Barnum, and he had a slogan, one show for all? No, it's not right, that. Something for everybody. I think it was one show for all, I think that's what he called, yeah. And that's what they're saying, there's a statement that applies for everybody. And Derek, whether you believe him or not, he came out with a lot of stuff that are Barnum statements, but he came out with some stuff that were amazing. Really entertaining, though. I'm a big fan of Clinton Baptiste as well. Yeah, right. And, but similar sort of act. And then I'm a big fan of Darren Brown. And when you watch Darren Brown and Derek Acora, they're almost the same kind of act. But Derek says he's doing it for real. Well, did say he was doing it for real. And Darren says, I'm not doing it, I have no ability. So both of them are entertaining. So I do miss Derek Acora. But if you come on my Staircase House one when we get going again, it's based mainly on the episode of Most Haunted, and Derek does some wonderful scenes, and I try my best to reenact and connect. So talking about Mary Loves Dick, I came out with some really good ones on that one. But yeah, any other comments, Emma?
Yeah, Joe, do they decompose differently in lead coffins? That's our cracked actor friend.
Oh, Joe from the Cracked Hatch. How you doing, Joe? I want to ask you first of all, Joe, have you still got your tash? Have you still got your tash? Have a look what he says. I want to know. Well, Joe is the owner of the Cracked Actor in Stockport, which we have our interval when we do the Stockport Ghost Walk. Wonderful bar. He was threatening to cut his tash on him. He's got the most wonderful swirly tash. But I think somebody the other night said he cut it off, but I don't know if they were lying. But anyway, yes, well, bodies like that in lead coffins, they won't be able to decompose, would they? Because the oxygen can't get in. There's a coffin, isn't there, somewhere in Rome, where you can go into these crypts I think it's under the Vatican, I think, where they've got some monks hung up on the wall in different, they're all decomposed, but there's a young girl who was put in a glass coffin, and she's been in it for 200 years or so, and she is still pristine because it's airtight. And they reckon she cries sometime. What did Joe say?
He's not answered yet.
He's not got back. He's still crying about his tash. So yeah, they would. If oxygen can't get in there, they would. I mean, obviously, if they were buried without being properly embalmed and stuff, then maggots would eat them away from the inside. But if it's done properly, I suppose the body could live forever, just like the food on Tommyfield Market. The apples could live forever. Any other questions, Emma? Or is it going too fast?
It's going quite fast. Jackie Selwood says, what music do you listen to? And Gary Selwood says, where's my current bun?
Where's your current bun?
Oh, Joe's still got his tash.
Oh, good. I don't know what current bun means, but you have to explain that again. Are you talking about when I take the top knots out? Is that what you're on about? Maybe. Favourite music? Well, I like a bit. I like classical music. and I like rock music. And it's a bit of a, you might think, that's a bit odd, but it's not really, because the same notes, the same kind of rhythms and stuff are used in classical as in rock music. But I'm into all rock music. I just love stuff like, one of my favourites is Ghost at the moment, because I love rock music and theatrics. Alice Cooper, Marilyn Manson, love Rammstein, Motley Crue. I mean, I wanted to be Nicky Sixx for years and years and years, and I think I'm pretty much turning into him, to be honest. The new Matthew Tripp. That's one for you old timers out there. So, yeah, if you're talking about the bun, the man bun, well, it kept pretty similar shape every time, so I stopped taking photographs of it. Any other questions?
Yeah,
Gonna win then.
Melanie Lockhart.
Hello, Melanie. Happy birthday for last time.
We said it last time.
I know.
She wants to know where the name Flecky Bennett came from.
Well, the name Flecky Bennett, and here's for Nicola and Lola, that it's to do with Preston. I'm from Preston. I'm born and bred there. I'm a Prestonian. Soon got out. I'm a Prestonian, and yes, when I was at school, I don't know if you did it when you were at school, but we had to do a project in our last year at school. And I had a nighttime job at a local bingo collecting glasses. And the guy that worked there was an old projectionist from Preston. He used to work at the ABC cinema. And he was a projectionist there. He told me some great stories. He told me when The Exorcist was on at the ABC, it was a really steep, you know where the seats are, the rake of it was really steep down to the screen. And he said that one day he was on the back row, he had a box of Maltesers, you know the Maltesers you could get in big boxes? And he jumped at one of the first scenes in The Exorcist, and all the Maltesers rolled under the seats. He said it like thunder running through everybody's seats, and people were screaming as these Maltesers were hitting the back of their legs, thinking it was rats and stuff. Anyway, I digress. So he was the projectionist there, and he said, "Why don't you do a project on the old cinemas of Preston?" I thought, yeah, it sounds quite good. He said, "I'll take you around where they all were." A lot of them had turned into garages and pubs, and as you know, they found other uses for them. And it was fascinating. And in Preston, there's a roundabout in the centre, and there's a pub called the Adelphi. I think it's still there. It's where the student area is now, where the universities are. And just a side street round the back of there, there's an old windmill. You might have seen it if you've been to Preston. And next door to that was Bennett's Electric Cinema. Well, it used to be there. It was the first electric cinema in the country. And it was run by a guy called Ike Bennett. And he had long black hair. He never took a wash, unlike me. I'm very clean. He never washed. He was riddled with disease. And he hated children. But the thing is, the cinema used to specialise in comedy films for kids. It was called the Laugh and Scratch, because all the kids, even the kids downstairs on the stall area, there wasn't proper seats. They used to sit on crates, what they used to take bottles in. And he said the kids used to just take their old man out, have a wee on the floor, and then put it back in again as they were watching the cartoons. And the front of the stage was like a moat of piss. So I thought, this sounds wonderful. And Ike Bennett used to have a big long stick, and he used to stand on the balcony. If the kids were talking, he'd whap them on the head with this big stick. And he was hated, but people used to love the cinema. So it was known as the Laugh and Scratch Cinema, because it was full of fleas. And the old term for fleas was flecky. Now it's quite strange, because now people say, oh, they're on fleek. But flecky meant they were horrible. They were full of fleas and rats, and they say, oh, that person's flecky. So it wasn't known as Bennett's Electric Cinema, it was known as Flecky Bennett. Spelt slightly wrong. And I thought at the time, well, that's a great name, Flecky Bennett. And then all the years later, when I decided to create this Flecky Bennett, perfect name, I thought. So that's where it comes from. There's a bit of a Preston Ghost Walk for you there, Nicola. Have it on me. Donate now, donate, tip box.
No, it was Melanie wanted to know that.
Yeah, no, I'm saying to Nicola.
Oh,
bit of a Preston
and Lola,
thing.
because
And
Lola's
Lola.
just put, I love this, but it doesn't count as doing Preston. We want a full Preston set.
God, she's tough, isn't she? She's a tough one. Ooh, they're not as demanding in Manchester, my Fleckers and Fleckettes. Any other questions? Ooh. So if you watch this later, or you've watched it live, thank you for watching it live with me. I know there's been a lot of other stuff going on. Please donate if you can to the virtual tip jar. If you're watching it when you've been out after a drinking session tonight, if you've been, in the garden or whatever, I hope you enjoy it. Please give generously. And if it's tomorrow, well, again, enjoy it. and I'll be in bed when you're watching it if it's tomorrow. I've had a great time. I think I've got time for one more question.
Yes.
Let's have a look.
Find one.
So a bit of dry ice.
Scott Baron Herinel.
Oh, that's a good name, Scott.
It is.
I like
What
it.
are your favourite Hammer horror films?
Oh, my favourite Hammer horror films.
All of them.
Well, I love them all, but I think the one that I love the most is The Brides of Dracula.
We actually watched one last night, didn't we?
No, that wasn't Hammer. We watched The House on Haunted Hill with Vincent Price, which was bloody brilliant. No, that wasn't Hammer. Brides of Dracula. I think that's the one where there's a woman led on top of graves and she's talking to the dead underneath and she's bringing all the vampiresses out. We watched that not too long ago. I love that. But I love them all, you know what I mean? I actually went to Hammer's head office in London a few years ago because of the Highgate Ghost and Vampire Walk, which you'll be able to pay to watch pay-per-view from next Friday. I went and had a meeting with them because they said, when we've got executives coming over for meetings about Hammer products and Hammer productions, would you take them round Highgate? Because a lot of the films were filmed in Highgate. And I said, yes. So I went to their head office and they had all the merchandise and Vincent Price, Christopher Lee's cape and everything. And I met Christopher Lee once. I was, my first acting job was at the Royal Exchange in Manchester, and they sent me to London to Balham's of Angels of Balham, which is a clothing shop where most people, for all the filming, to get all the props and clothes from. As I was going in, Christopher Lee was coming out. God, he was tall. He was taller than the Oldham Giant. He must have been nearly 7 foot. But he looked like a real gentleman. So all the Hammer ones I love with a passion, you know, and that Kensington gore, that blood that's all over him, it's brilliant. One last question.
Yes.
Just bear with us. So I hope you all come along next Friday. It won't be live, but maybe I'll do a live before it or after just to say what you think of it. But as I say, once you've downloaded it, you can then watch it as many times as you want. Don't share it if you can help it, but, you know, you can watch it with your family and friends.
Oh, I'm not sure. I think it was Mark Coffey says, next time you go, ooh, can you say crab paste?
Yeah, people say, well, it's like, ooh. It is Bo Selector. I have to admit, I ripped it off so bad. It was to do with my face looking like a prune. It's on my ghost walk. I'll come back to what you said. But on my ghost walk, I talk about Hannah Beswick, who was this woman who was she was buried inside a grandfather clock, and her face all went black and twisted like a prune. And it just sounded a great way to say it, a prune. So I thought I nicked it off Bo Selector. Kicking that crab paste. Ooh. Kicking that rich stick. Ooh. Dick Van Dyke. So, you'll know what I mean if you watch Ball Selector. It's been wonderful seeing you all again. I hope you're keeping really well. I miss you all. God knows when we're going to be back on the streets again. But let's keep doing these. Please donate if you can. But until I see you again, my friends. Oh, have you put up the Facebooks and things?
I've done all the
links. She's done all that. Let's have our theme tune out. See you again next time, my friends. Ooh, crab paste.
It's Flecky, it's Friday, it's Flecky Bennett Friday, it's Flecky, it's Friday, it's Flecky's Fright Night.